You are one of the smartest people in most rooms you walk into, and it is making you miserable, not because intelligence is a burden, because you have been doing something with your intelligence that is costing you everything. You have been using your most powerful asset, your analytical, precise, capable mind, to try and solve other people's irrationality. You explain clearly. They twist your words. You present facts. They respond with feelings. You construct the argument perfectly. They double down on the delusion. And you walk away not just frustrated, depleted, as if something was taken from you in that conversation that you are not sure you can get back. Here is what was taken. And here is why the most intelligent people consistently bleed the most in a world they are more than capable of navigating. If they would stop making one catastrophic mistake. A study published in the journal Intelligence found something that should stop every high-performing person in their tracks. Individuals who score in the top percentile for analytical and logical reasoning report significantly higher rates of anxiety, social frustration, and what researchers termed ruminative exhaustion. The specific kind of mental fatigue that comes not from doing hard work, but from processing other people's irrationality on a continuous basis. The smarter you are, the more it costs you. Not because the world is harder for intelligent people, because intelligent people consistently make the same foundational error. They apply logical frameworks to fundamentally illogical behavior. They try to solve with reason what was never built on reason. And the gap between what they expect and what they consistently encounter becomes the source of a chronic, compounding drain on their most valuable resource, their mental energy. History confirms this at the highest levels. The most brilliant strategists in every century have been undone not by enemies who outthought them, but by the accumulated cost of engaging with irrationality as if it could be corrected with the right argument. Napoleon, one of the most tactically gifted minds in military history, squandered the latter half of his career in a rage against the incompetence and treachery of the people around him. The energy he spent trying to force rational outcomes from irrational people is the energy that was not available when it mattered most. Marcus Aurelius watched this pattern destroy men around him for 19 years, and he built something that made him immune to it, not through cleverness. Through 7 laws he applied every single day inside the most irrational environment any leader has ever had to navigate. Marcus Aurelius commanded the greatest empire on earth. He was surrounded, every single day, by men who flattered him to his face and conspired behind his back, by generals who inflated their victories, by senators who prioritized their own interests over the empire's survival, by court advisors who told him what he wanted to hear rather than what he needed to know. He was one of the most intelligent men of his century, surrounded by some of the most irrational and self-serving behavior available to any human being. And he did not lose himself in it. In the Meditations, the private journal he wrote for no one but himself, he documented his practice with a precision that modern psychology is still catching up to. Every morning, before the court convened, before the petitions arrived, before the day's parade of irrationality began, he wrote this. Begin the morning by saying to yourself, I shall meet with meddling, ungrateful, violent, treacherous, envious, and unsociable people. But I have seen the beauty of good and the ugliness of evil, and have recognized that the wrongdoer has a nature related to my own. He was not writing pessimism. He was engineering immunity. By naming, precisely, in advance, the irrationality he would encounter, he removed its power to shock him, drain him, or pull him into engagement it did not deserve. He also wrote, and this is the line that cuts through every intelligent person's most expensive habit. How much more grievous are the consequences of anger than the causes of it? He had seen the calculation run in both directions. The man who engages, who argues, corrects, and tries to fix the irrationality around him, pays more in the engagement than the original offense ever cost. Every time, without exception, Marcus chose the alternative. Not passivity, not indifference. The sovereign withdrawal of a man who has assessed the situation clearly and decided that his energy is worth more than the argument. So why does the pattern persist? Why do the most capable people, the ones who can see the irrationality clearly, who can trace exactly where the logic breaks down, who know the argument is unwinnable. Why do they stay in it? Three mechanisms, each one running beneath the level where most people look. The first, the intelligent person has confused correction with responsibility. When you see someone operating from ignorance, making a decision that is clearly wrong, holding a belief that is demonstrably false, behaving in a way that is visibly destructive, your mind registers this as a problem it is equipped to solve, because you are equipped to solve it. Logically, clearly, completely. What your mind does not register is that the other person did not ask to be solved. Epictetus wrote with a precision that modern psychology has since confirmed. It is impossible for a man to learn what he thinks he already knows. The irrational person is not operating from a deficit of information. They are operating from a fortress of identity. Their opinion, however flawed, is not a thought they are holding. It is a wall they are standing behind. When you introduce logic, their nervous system does not receive it as a gift. It receives it as an attack. And you, with all your intelligence, are spending your most valuable resource assaulting a wall that was never going to open from the outside. The savior complex is not generosity. It is the intelligent person's most expensive illusion. The second, the ego has disguised itself as principle. There is a moment in every unwinnable argument where something shifts. The facts no longer matter. The logic has been presented. The case has been made. And the intelligent person stays anyway. Not because they believe the argument can be won. Because their ego cannot tolerate the image of the irrational person walking away believing they have won. Seneca named this with surgical precision. To be angry is to punish yourself for the mistakes of another. Every minute you remain in that argument, past the point where reason has failed, past the point where you know the outcome is already decided. You are not fighting for truth. You are fighting for the last word. And the last word, when it is finally delivered, changes nothing about the other person and costs everything in you. True dominance is not proving you are right. It is deciding that the person in front of you is not worth the energy required to prove it. I want you to go back to the last one. The last conversation where you walked away depleted. Not the dramatic confrontation, the ordinary one. The coworker who twisted your words. The family member who made it emotional. The person online whose comment lived in your head for the rest of the day. Walk through it slowly. At what point did you know the argument was unwinnable? Was it the third exchange? The fifth? The moment they raised their voice or attacked your character instead of addressing the point. You knew. You knew before it was over that logic had left the conversation. And you stayed anyway. Now ask yourself honestly. What did staying cost you? The hour afterward, replaying it. The mental energy spent constructing the perfect response you never got to deliver. The mood that followed you into the rest of your day. Now ask the only question that matters. What did staying win you? The third, and the one that requires the most honesty to face. Most intelligent people are secretly waiting for justice. They believe, somewhere beneath the frustration, that the universe will eventually correct the irrational person, reward the reasonable one, deliver the verdict that the argument never could. And when the universe fails to do this, when the irrational colleague gets the promotion, when the unreasonable person faces no consequence, when the fool thrives while the careful thinker grinds, the intelligent person becomes bitter. And bitterness is the most expensive long-term cost of this pattern, because it does not just drain the interaction, it drains the character. Epictetus taught the only frame that dissolves this completely. Divide the world ruthlessly into what is within your control and what is not. The distribution of external rewards falls frequently on the unjust. That is the nature of a chaotic world. But your character, your mind, your focus, your refusal to compromise your standards for the relief of the last word, that belongs entirely to you. And no irrational person, no undeserved promotion, no unearned applause can touch it, unless you hand it to them by staying in the argument. Here is what you actually do, not as a permanent philosophical position, as a daily practice. Starting tonight. Practice 1. The morning inoculation. Tomorrow morning, before the phone, before the news, before any contact with the outside world. Spend 2 minutes doing what Marcus did. Name what is coming, not as pessimism, as preparation. Say it plainly. Today I will meet people who are unreasonable. who will not respond to logic, who will take what I offer clearly and distort it. Today I will not be surprised by this, and I will not spend my premium energy trying to cure it. That 2-minute practice is the difference between a day where irrationality ambushes you and a day where you have already factored it into the equation. When it arrives, and it will, you do not spiral. You simply observe, there it is. Exactly as expected. Practice 2, the economic audit before engagement. Before you respond to any provocation, any message, any comment, any conversation that is pulling you in, ask one question. What is the return on my energy here? Not whether you are right, whether the engagement serves you. If the answer is no, if arguing will not change their mind, will not improve your circumstances, and will only result in an elevated heart rate and a depleted afternoon, decline the transaction completely, without the parting shot, without the final word, without the explanation of why you are walking away. Walk away. The silence you leave behind is not surrender. It is the most powerful statement available to you, and the only one they cannot respond to. Practice 3. Translate malice into affliction. Tonight, think of the person whose irrationality is currently costing you the most. Reframe them, specifically, in writing, not as someone targeting you, but as someone who cannot see. They are not attacking you. They are thrashing in the dark of their own ungoverned interior, projecting their internal suffering outward because they have no other mechanism for what they are carrying. Write one sentence. This person is not my enemy. They are evidence of what I am choosing not to become. That reframe does not excuse their behavior. It removes its power to touch yours. Practice 4. The attention economy decision. Identify one place in your current life where you are spending premium attention on someone whose irrationality you cannot and will not change. One place, and make the decision, tonight, specifically, to redirect that attention to one thing within your control. One conversation you have been avoiding because the irrational situation has been consuming the bandwidth. One goal that has been sitting behind the noise of someone else's chaos. 1 hour tomorrow that belongs to your own horizon rather than someone else's disorder. Marcus did not manage the fools in his court by perfecting his strategy for dealing with them. He managed them by being so completely occupied with his own standard, his own character, his own work, his own daily practice of becoming, that their chaos could not find a large enough surface to grip. You came into this video exhausted, not from the work, from the waste, the accumulated cost of applying your most capable asset, your mind, to problems it was never designed to solve. Other people's irrationality is not a problem. It is a condition. And conditions do not respond to the right argument. They do not improve because you stayed in the conversation. They do not yield because you finally found the perfect words. They simply continue, while you deplete. Marcus Aurelius sat at the center of the most irrational court in the ancient world, surrounded by manipulators, sycophants, and fools, for 19 years. And he did not waste himself on them. He wrote to himself every morning. He named what was coming. He assessed each engagement with the cold economic question of whether his energy was worth the cost. And when it was not, he withdrew, not in defeat, in sovereignty. He wrote, "How much more grievous are the consequences of anger than the causes of it? Every irrational person who has ever drained you was not the cause of your exhaustion. Your decision to keep engaging past the point where reason had already failed. That was the cause. The 7 laws are not strategies for dealing with irrational people. They are the architecture of a mind that has stopped needing to deal with them, because it has become so completely governed, so utterly occupied with its own standard, so entirely focused on its own horizon, that the noise of the irrational world does not find a surface to land on. You cannot rid the world of foolishness, but you have the absolute sovereign right to refuse it entry into the only territory that matters, the one inside you. Guard it with everything you have. Subscribe to the inner Citadel. This is where the architecture gets built, for the minds that are done bleeding their premium energy into the world's chaos. I'll see you in the next one.